And welcome to episode 52 of Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres. Tonight, the Self-Portrait Challenge. So last week, for anybody who's tuning in for the first time, I spent quite a chunk of the podcast talking about the notion of self-portraits, going beyond the selfie into really trying to create something. Now, one of the big problems for self-portraits, over and above the technical thing of how you take a photo when you're not behind the camera but in front of it at the same time, is the emotional side of it. Most photographers don't particularly like being in front of the camera. One of the perks of sort of being behind the camera is precisely so you don't have to be in front of it. So one way of overcoming that is to play a character. And you can have fun with that and create stories. And that was really the general gist of what I was talking about last week. So I set a challenge for this week. And lo and behold, we've had about 20 different people put in their photos. Several people have put in more than one photo. So I have in excess of 40 odd images. So quite a bit to go through tonight. But I think it will be fun. It should be a lot of fun. That's the point of these challenges is about sharing and inspiring each other. Is having a go and then kind of seeing what everybody else is up to. And then if you think they've got a great idea, nick it. Do your own version of it. And there's a lot of fantastic ideas tonight. What's also been, I think, what I've really also enjoyed is as people have been putting their photos in. So everybody in the Facebook group, Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, has also been, everybody's been kind of leaping in and leaving comments and words of encouragement or asking questions or coming up with alternative suggestions. And I love that. We've got such a strong wee community here with our love and obsession for photography. So yeah, I really want to thank everybody who's taken part, both those who've actually put pictures in, those who've left comments and supportive comments for other people, those who turn up occasionally but are still sort of, waving at us. Yeah, I think it's good. It's fun. So tonight then, we're here now live on Facebook. So leave a comment and let me know you're here. Say hi. If it's your first time here, let me know where you're from as well. It's always good to know where in the world people are poking their head around the door from. So I see we've got some comments in already. So let's start with a few of these. Just before I get onto that, I will say if you find these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining, in whatever form, would like to support them, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is the place to do it. It's not compulsory, but it is always appreciated. So let's take a little look at the comments, see what we've got. So Becca is with us with evening everyone. Asim says evening all. Inga is evening. Oh, you're here early, Inga. So Inga's quite often a little bit late because she runs a class. So I take it wasn't on tonight or has been postponed. Nuria's here. Ben is here. Says hello, people. Maggie, my wife, is saying hello. Roy, hi everyone from a very warm and sunny Yorkshire. That's an unusual combination in a sentence. Sandra is saying hello everyone. Nicola, evening everyone. April is saying hello everyone. Benedito, skull everyone. Robert, howdy from Texas. VG, good evening friends. April says hi VG. John Harvey says hello back again. And there's various people replying to other people saying hello and good morning and good afternoon and good evening, because of course we're spread quite across the way with Robert in Texas and VG in India and various people at different places in between. So Benedito says, if it ain't fun, you ain't doing it right. Brian from Dumfries is saying hi, Kim, and to all who are looking in. Rosie says hi to everyone from the Isle of Whithorn. Russ is saying hi, Kim, and evening, everyone. Morven, hello, first time from Dumfries. Hey, Morven, so glad you could make it along. Jackie says hello, everybody. Jackie here from South Africa. Michelle is saying hi, everyone. And I think Fiji's welcoming Morven as well. So, good crew in tonight. Excuse me. Right, well, there's a lot to get through this evening. Now, I will say that this, again, for those who are maybe here first time, most podcasts, we have a kind of critique section where people send their images in specifically for a critique, breakdown, feedback on how they might have improved their images. Tonight, I'm not really going to be doing a lot of that. A couple of people have asked for a little bit of feedback. I might give a little bit of that. If I gave comprehensive critique to the 40 plus photos we've got, we'll still be here for next week. So tonight isn't so much about critique. Tonight is much more about inspiration, sharing, having a go, and celebrating the fact that we all had to go. There's so many people have put in images when I know that doing self-portraits really put you out of your comfort zone, and yet you still went ahead and did it anyway for this podcast, which I just love that. I think you're brilliant. Well done, you. It's fantastic. Mandy's come in with a hi, Kim, and everyone as well. So, I think flying up on the screen from Facebook saying, add graphics for your live video, display viewers' comments and poll results of graphics, or create static lower thirds, tickers and more. Well, I wish they told me that about 20 minutes ago and given me a chance to play with it. Okay, well, maybe try that another week. Stacey's here as well from Pennsylvania. Says, good afternoon, Kim and Maggie. A beautiful day today. Glad to know that as well. Cool, right, okay, so what are we going to do then? So, the self-portrait challenge. The last week I was showing you a photo I created, mucking around with an overhead light, packet of seeds, pretend glass of whiskey, trilby. I thought I would edit up another one of those just to get us started, playing around just to sort of show that. The idea with this was that, as opposed to selfies, where most of the time what we're trying to do is put ourselves in the best light. Most people are busy taking their photos and they take 10 or 1,000 of them to try and make sure that their face isn't screwed up or their nose isn't looking wonky or their whatever it is, that the bit about themselves they feel a bit self-conscious isn't on display. And so selfies, we're trying to generally do the quick best version of ourselves. And what I wanted to talk about with the idea of self-portraiture was the idea that it's actually more fun when you move away from that. If you get rid of the idea of trying to look younger, thinner, smoother skinned, more conventionally beautiful, whatever it is, and actually move, instead of trying to find the best version of yourself in some kind of conventional beauty idea, you go for an interesting version. This idea of play a character, be a bit part character, be dress up and pull faces and what have you. And I think it's so much more interesting. It frees you. It frees you from the tyranny of how we constantly told we have to appear and be perfect. Once you get past that, it is a freedom. So, just this kind of thing, push the side of my face up, have a little bit of a grumpy face. And it's kind of fun. And here we have a kind of character portrait. And I'm playing around with lighting. I've added a brick wall background. I've desaturated the colours. Just trying to create a kind of a bit of a fun mood. So, you can do that kind of thing. So, with that in mind, let's make a start. I'm going to start working my way through the photos. I will stop periodically and look in on the comments. So if there's things you want to say, questions you want to ask as we go, put them into the comments and let me know. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube afterwards or on my blog, I record these as they go out on a Tuesday evening and then edit them, render them overnight on a Wednesday, usually by Wednesday afternoon, depending on your local time. It's then up online, up on youtube.com/Kim Ayres, where I also embedded into my blog, kimayres.blogspot.com. You can still join in. I mean, okay, you're not going to be able to join in the live conversation, but if you leave comments, if you ask questions, I should be notified. And you can still kind of have a bit of fun if there's something you want to say or something on your mind. Then do please still leave a comment. Okay, right. What have we got? Oh, April said that's a good shot, Kim. Thank you. Nice start. Cool. Right. Okay. So what are we going to do then? We'll start with Roy, because I must admit I was quite impressed with Roy. Was, I think, pretty much the first one to stick his head above the parapet and actually post a picture in. And in fact, he sent in 2 photos. Here's Roy's first one. So in fact, he uses the phrase, looks like I'm the first to stick my head over the parapet on the self-portrait challenge, but here goes. 2 versions, same theme. So this one and this one. So in both of them, basically, Roy, with his trusty penknife, has managed to chop down the tree. And it's, I think it's fun, Roy. I think there was a few things going on in the comments at which point he then admitted that the workmen who actually were cutting down the trees were giving him some very strange looks. But I think this is fun, Roy. I think opportunistic, I don't know whether this was happening nearby and you saw it, or you happened to have your knife on you and just thought, right, grab that opportunity, or how much you might have planned it beforehand. But yeah, it's a kind of good fun start, I think. It's that idea again, you're not having to do the conventional self-portrait. You can set yourself up in a scene. So thanks a lot for sending that one in, Roy. Now, comments. Now, the other thing, one of the things I am aware of is that I'm roughly about 20 seconds-ish ahead of you. So by the time you actually, so I say something, and then by the time I've looked at something and read it, you've already written it, or rather you haven't written it. Time plays funny things. So so now there's a little statement come up from Inga saying, like your expression on your face, but the chances are that was written a good 20 seconds ago, and before that Inga started writing it. So if I don't get to your comment straight away, then bear in mind the time difference. Okay, so from that then I will let's move on to the next photo. What have we got next? Next up we have April. And April put in 2 versions. She says, April says, I put on my colonial hat and shot this with my one hand. Was cracking up in between shots. So this one, and she did a black and white version. Now she says, I have a rash due to a chronic illness. If this was in the summer, I would look more decent. Sorry. Well, I don't say sorry. It's not about trying to, that sort of imply, I don't think you shouldn't have to apologise for how you look. You're creating a photo, you're creating a character, you're having fun with the imagery. That's what counts. That's the fun part of it. There is a thing about sort of the self-consciousness. We get very self-conscious about our appearance. Hardly anybody else really cares about our appearance. We are just another person. How much do you really overly care what somebody else looks like? By and large, we don't. Now, there's the thing about recognising people, and if we've got a friend who's looking a bit ill, then obviously we have concern. But, the person who works in the post office, or the person who delivers your parcels, or the person who's in the bank, or, your accountant, or you may, how often do you really worry about what they look like? You don't. When you meet up with people, certainly when you meet up with your friends or your family, you see the person. that's who you get excited because you're going to be with that person. And so hopefully, I think some of these kind of self-portrait things are quite a fun way to kind of get round that over self-consciousness. Not overly aware of whatever rash you've got, whether it's on the other side of your face. Rashes, though, I will say you shove into black and white. If ever, if ever you do find yourself with a sort of slightly blotchy red part on the skin, which you don't particularly want to crop up in a photo, black and white is a great way of getting around a whole multitude of sins with that. So yeah, that's fun there, April. Just okay. So you're not looking into the camera. You're holding the camera off to one side. You've got that sprig of blossom, a twig, and yeah, it's a fun kind of photo to do. So thanks for sending that one in. Right, what else have we got? Comments. VG saying, good one, Roy. Love the humour. Stacey says she is getting slight delays and is in the car going home from the pet store. Right, okay. Well, I hope you're concentrating more on driving and less on the podcast. Roy says, on the golf course, 50mm from my home. Oh, 50 metres from my home. I knew they were cutting the trees before opening it up this week, so it's sort of planned. Okay, fun. Sandra says she can't see any rash on you, April. You look fine to me. April says, we are harder on ourselves. I did have fun pretending I was in the little house on the prairie. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I just stick on a bonnet on, have a bit of fun. Yeah. April says, thanks, Sandra, on the other side. Oh, well, you see, there you go. You see, you're saying about the rash, but it was on the side of the face that we can't see anyway. So if you hadn't said anything, we'd never have known. Okay, right. So next up then, let's go to Robert. And so let's flick back over here. Now, I was chatting to Robert earlier in the week, and he had planned doing a fancy photo shoot. Work has got on top, and he's not really had quite the time to do it. So he's sent this one in, says, I didn't have time this week to compose new photo due to work. However, I did take this one last fall while driving around with Anne looking for subjects to shoot. I'm pretty sure it will be points deducted, but at least I submitted. I will endeavour to create a better photograph in the near future. So the points deducted bit, this was last week when I was talking about the idea of putting photos in for the thing. I kind of said, well, look, you know, I'll deduct points if I can see you just doing a camera in the mirror. And fair enough, that's what you've got, camera in the mirror. However, for all that, Robert, I will say is very nicely edited. I do, you know, there's I like the light coming through on hitting the side of your face there. You've got a good tone, you know, between the good range between the light and darks. I think it's kind of interesting that you're looking off to one side and that you're not looking actually directly into the camera here. It feels like you almost kind of hit the button while you were distracted, which adds a slight extra layer to the story, I think. So although it is kind of slightly more veering towards the traditional selfie, as in camera in the mirror, it does sort of step a little bit beyond that. So I think you can have a point anyway from that. So thanks for that one. Thanks for that one, Robert. Now, I'm just wondering, how often do I click back to the comments? I'm pretty much getting through one before the next one starts. There's a Robert saying, oh dear, so he probably hasn't caught up with the rest of the stuff that I'm saying yet. Okay, tell you what, let's flick back onto the next photo and then I'll come back. So next up, we have Diana. And Diana played around giving us two versions, two things to play with. So here's Diana's one. She says, so I had fun playing with the challenge self-portrait. One is after Vermeer. So the girl with the pearl earring, which interestingly was one of these photos, you know, for those who were around a few weeks ago, and I did a picture of my daughter Meg, and then I got a load of comments from people saying it was like the girl with the pearl earring, even though it actually was kind of nothing like a girl with a pearl earring in terms of she wasn't wearing a headscarf and all the rest of it. This is fun though, you know. Here we go. Diana has actually put on a scarf, and it's like, well, here we have girl with the pearl earrings, grown up. So after Vermeer, and the other picture got in with going for a little bit of kind of film noir, black and white, moody. Got the light coming in through the blinds in that kind of, you know, 1940s femme fatale style photo. So lots of fun there, Diana, getting dressed up, looking for different kind of things. Both these photos have a very different feel to them. You know, that you've got one set of light, it is colour, and it's particular kind of direct look into the gaze, no nonsense. This one you've now got sunglasses and hat and black and white. So yeah, lots of fun, I think, and it shows you how different you can go, and that's, you know, just, you don't have to be just doing one thing from one angle. So I like the fact that you sort of decided to try two entirely different kinds of photos. So thanks for sending those ones in. Okay, quick flip back to the comments, see what we're getting here. So Benedito says he's looking out for security while he films. Comment on Roberts. It looks a bit like a security guard. Sandra says, much better than my image mirror reflection image, Robert. Well, we'll be coming on to yours in a bit, Sandra, so we can make the comparisons if you wish. Maggie, my wife, says, will you be awarding Smug Points this evening? Yeah, I forgot about that. There's something I started doing in one of the first challenges. Yes. So Smug Points, I think, yes. I think probably everybody who's actually stuck a photo in automatically gets a Smug Point for actually doing it, you know. So yeah, we'll liberally throw a few Smug Points in as well. So I think Roy can have a Smug Point for getting out with his penknife to chop down the tree. April can have Smug Points for being Little House on the Prairie, and Robert, even Robert can have a Smug Point because it is a very actually well composed photo. And Diana, well, you know, you've gone for two different shots there, so I suppose you have to get 2 Smug Points there then, don't you? Okay, where are we at then? So more comments. So Maggie says, really like the directness of your stare. That's referring to Diana's after Vermeer picture. And VG says, love this picture, black and pink. Sandra says she prefers the shocking pink headscarf is my favourite. Becca says, love these. Jackie says, love the fact that you can portray such different appearances. And April is saying, I have to say, a lot of creative people. There are a lot of creative people. You're all creative. Anybody who's thinking they're not creative is just kind of hearing the demons in their head putting them down. The fact that you've got the camera, the fact that you take the photos, the fact that you take the time to think about the photos, this is all forms of creativity, you know. So yeah, we are a creative bunch here, so we could all have a collective smug moment. Right, okay, so let's shift on. So next up we have so we got a couple in from people who've not submitted before. One of these is Vandana. So I don't know whether you're watching live, Vandana. So Vandana says, it's black and white genre, which I like, and I like the way the light is in this particular portrait. The other one I took on an experimental basis. I wanted to capture a different mood here and a more natural look with no makeup. So Vandana using her phone, taking photos, and whilst there's a sort of sense of selfie. It's not really going selfie. It's trying to do a little bit more with it, and I think that one of the key things here is, as Vandana says, these pictures are taken as an experiment into portraiture, and that's great. That's really powerful. That's the thing to do, because portraiture isn't what most photographers do. Most photographers do pretty much everything except people. And then, as we've talked, self-portraiture is something that's even rarer, because we don't tend to like being in front of the camera. So I think the fact that you've taken that step to put yourself in front of the camera, play with things. You've got this colour one where you say you're not wearing makeup. You've got this one where you're trying black and white, playing around with the lighting a bit, I think is brilliant. So thanks very much for submitting those ones, Vandana. Right, what else have we got? Oh, Benedito. Right. My self-portrait based on the film character, Thor. My take on Thor as an old man. So I don't think I've actually seen a photo of you before, Ben. So yeah, that's a big beard there, long grey hair. I suppose if you weren't doing Thor, it would probably be Gandalf. Added in all the lightning. Great fun, great fun. So the lake is a Loch Lomond image I took in 2019. The hammer portrait was taken today on a late afternoon sun. And then the other one he's taken, which was this one, was another one from the few images he took. So Ben's been out there in the garden or allotment, taking a few photos of himself, wearing the colours of Thor, with a cape and his amazing silver mane and beard, and then playing around in Photoshop or whatever editing program to create the Marvel superhero character or god of Norse mythology. And I guess that explains why you said Skoll at the beginning, which is a kind of Viking Nor greeting, I think. In fact, Inga, you'll be able to tell us about that one, I would think, being based up in Norway. So yeah, lots of fun there, Ben. I think thanks for submitting these. Nice sledgehammer there as well. Yeah, I like the humour in there, and the fact that, you know, okay, if I'm going to play a character, let's play a character. Let's go out and find one. So yeah, extra smug points for that one, Ben, I think. Where are we at? Where are we? Okay, so Becca says about Vandana, she looks like Cher in the first pic. Sandra says great phone photos, Vandana. April says this is great, and Mandy says wasn't brave enough to do a selfie, but love looking at everyone else. Put a face to the names. Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I always knew that, you know, not everybody was going to be able to take part, either because it was just going to be a psychological step too far, or they were going to run out of time, or it was just going to prove too difficult, or they weren't going to be able to come up with an idea. And when I set this challenge last week, there was part of me that honestly thought, you know, I had this conversation with Maggie afterwards, what if only about 2 or 3 people actually submit anything? And there was a genuine feeling that could be possible. And I thought, oh, okay, this could be quite a short. And I was already starting to rack my brains of how I could fill the time of the podcast if we only actually had about 3 entries. So the fact that we've had 20 of you actually put stuff in still blows me away. I think it's brilliant. Sandra's saying, love the Thor portrait. Nuria, love this one. Mandy says, love the Thor. Inga says, great fun. Benedito says, desaturated and toned down a bit to match the light of the lock image. That's in the post-processing. Yep, great fun. Good move, rather. Michelle says, I'm loving the creative photos and great fun. Maggie says, reminds me of William Blake's God. Oh, yeah, that's a different way of looking at it. Brilliant. Rosie says, Thor is fabulous, very creative. Seam is saying, love how you managed to capture the lighting, Thor. Sandra loves the Thor portrait. VG is saying, Thor. Benedito's saying, the Photoshop render difference clouds, then invert and play with levels. Yeah, and clean up with a black brush and set the layer to screen. Okay, if you have... I recognise that technique, and basically, if you have Photoshop, type into YouTube or Google lightning effect render clouds, and you'll find all sorts of tutorials out there on it. So yeah, it's a way of kind of adding lightning effects into your pictures. And VG says bandana from India ? Sounds like from India, looking gorgeous. Great. Okay, so cool. Next photo then. Where are we going next? So we've got Thor and VG. Okay, so now VG sent me half a dozen photos. 3 different characters, 2 different settings. VG's been very busy. But what a collection. What a collection. So I have to let me tell you what VG says first of all. So VG says, I'm not photography shy or afraid to pose, which is an immediate advantage over a lot of people taking part. But the challenge remained was running around, setting the camera, rushing back to pose, running around, get the camera. And it's that problem of, unless you've got so if you can monitor it, now there are ways, some cameras you can get, some of the more modern cameras, you can get apps for your phone, or you can tether the camera to a tablet or a laptop, which allows you to kind of monitor the screen, and then you can sort of press the screen and, you can still set it on a 10-second delay, press your remote release or button on the screen, and then just make sure you're in the right place. It doesn't mean you don't have to kind of get out of place and run round every time, but if you don't have that, you're on the kind of 10-second run round, get into place, go back, take a look, realise you were blinking, run back round, do it again, however many times you have to do it. And it's a lot of doing, and I know some of you have done an awful lot of takes in order to get the photo you've done. So VG says, so having got that, now she goes on to say, village fairs in India are not complete without people selling bangles made out of glass and materials. So I tried to recreate the story indoors. So here we go, VG set up, silks and saris and tree with all covered in all these different bangles. It's rich and it's colourful. But she goes beyond this. So she says, so there's the bangle seller who arranges her bangles for display and daydreams. And then there's the bangle stealer who hides and tries stealing the bangles. And here we go. The bangle stealer sneaking in, lifting the bangles and then running away. So I thought that was so much fun, VG. I think you definitely get extra smug points for that. So that idea of actually is not just a photo, but what you've got is sequential photo. You've got a whole photo story going on. I just thought was absolutely brilliant. I'm going to take a little look through those again. We have our bangle seller. And, you can see she not only changed kind of expression and body language, actually changed VG's changed the sari as well, so the outfit. Love that expression. Superb, beautifully done, VG. But VG wasn't even finished at that point. She then set about creating a photo booth of newspapers. The walls and floors were covered with newspaper to create a set using old newspapers. And then she's done 2 versions of this, where she's done a colour and a black and white. For my taste, I think I prefer the black and white. I think although the newspapers are all in colour, there's something about black and white print. Maybe it's a nostalgia thing or something like that. And then you being black and white in the black and white print kind of makes you look like a photograph in a newspaper surrounded by newspapers. Which is, really fun kind of idea, I think. And then I know in the comments, I think somebody said, well, that's, did you stick all these bits of paper up yourself? To which she replied, it took 45 minutes and her dad helped her. So, so there you go, just goes to show you just how much work went into that. So seriously impressed. So yeah, extra smug points all round there for you, VG, for sure. Okay, let's flip back and see the comments again. Where are we? So, VG says you are aiming for the Smug Point. Sorry, Maggie says, VG, you are aiming for the Smug Point record. And to which Nuria replies, you're going to get a lot more Smug Points. Um, so, and okay, VG saying, well, this time I can't as I lost focus on part. Yeah, one or two of them are maybe, slightly out of focus. I'm not going to. That's what you know that already. The thing is what you've got is you've got a story there, which I think is a lot of fun, and that's the bigger part of tonight. Is that it's that idea of really going for it and having fun and experimenting and hopefully inspiring others. And I'm sure there'll be a few people watching in this evening who go, oh, I hadn't thought about the idea of doing like a sequence or playing multiple characters in a sequence. So yeah, that was good. Maggie says gorgeous colours. Nicola says love the different sides of your story, VG. Maggie loves the story. Sandra loves the photos. Inga says great storytelling. April says very creative, a 4-step story. Rosie loves the Bangle Stealer story. Russ says great story. Mandy, good one, VG. John, good job, VG. April says from traditional to present day. Jackie says wonderful story. You went to a lot of trouble. Becca likes the black and white one, so we're now onto the newspaper ones. Nuria loves the black and white as well. Becca's saying great storytelling, and Sandra really loves the newspaper pictures as well. Michelle is complimenting VG with a very good imagination, and VG saying thank you with a little smug face. Yep. Brilliant. Cool. Okay, so that was brilliant. So thank you so much for those, VG. I know you put a lot of time and energy into creating those, and really inspirational. So lots of fun with that. Okay, so change of pace. Let's go to Marie. And so what I like about this is, so what we've got Marie says, my self-portrait for the week taken in my room in the early morning light. And so yeah, playing around with the light coming through the blinds. Now we saw was it Diana, I think, did a little bit with her kind of film noir bit on this, where I think the blinds were more open, so there was kind of thin, a handful of sort of thin darker stripes. This is interestingly what Marie has done is the blinds are fairly closed, and so it's only thin shafts of light coming through, and it creates quite an amazing pattern going down. I think this could be quite interesting in black and white as well. Maybe worth just sort of playing around with that a little bit when you get the chance, Marie. I would drop it into Photoshop and start doing it, but as I said earlier, I think if I start sort of doing that with each of the photos, we really will be here for a few days. So, but I like that stripe effect. It makes it very abstract, makes it very interesting. I suppose what I might also suggest is if you stood a little bit closer to the window as well. There is that notion of, as I've talked before, about the fact that gaps feel exaggerated in photos, so you kind of narrow the gap a little bit more to make it kind of feel a little bit more natural. But I really love that patterning, and nicely. But I like that idea as well, that it is, you're not having to worry too much about artificial lighting or playing with a large set. You've just gone to a natural window and you've used what's there in the house. So yeah, have a smug point there, I think. And then next on, what I'll do is I'll flick on to the next one, and then I'll go back to the comments again. We have Stacey. Stacey also playing around with the window, this time from the other side. Stacey says, I took this through a window. I blurred the background and turned the background to black and white. I took several shots to get this photograph. That must have been tricky, running it if you're actually having to go out the window and then run back in the window to stick the, stick the phone on. Going to try and make sure you've got a window near the door, I guess, so you can run out more quickly. My intention was to look mysterious. The weather outside was rainy and cloudy, and I was trying to make it darker. So yeah, it's kind of very lost in the shadows here, dark, moody. Obviously been having quite a bit of fun with this, Stacey. So yeah, nice to have that kind of. I think I saw a couple of people mention in the comments the kind of idea that had kind of almost quite gothic feel to it. The hood as well. The you know, kind of that it makes it almost timeless in a way. Stop, you know, it could be a coat hood or it could be the hood of a cloak or something. We can't really see because it's almost silhouetted, not quite. There's still enough light to see that your face is there and you can see the hands pressed against the window. So lots of fun there. So yeah, good one, Stacey. Okay, let's flick back to the comments, see what we've got here. And okay, Becca says the black stripes are placed perfectly. Sandra, dramatic with the shadows across your face and body. So we're talking now about Marie's photo with the blinds. April says a human abstract photo category. Yes, you could. Roy says strong composition. VG says look like a striped t-shirt, very strong lights and shadows, very powerful. Seems loving the stripy texture, Marie. Stacey, right. Oh, and then we're on to Stacey's photo. And Stacey's agreeing it was a bit of a feat to sort of keep running around to the window and then running back in to take the photo or set the timer. April says that looks like it's from a movie. Stacey says, why do I remember Macbeth opening scene? Sandra, ghostly image, Stacey, well done. Stacey says black robe with hood. Oh, Maggie says Wuthering Heights. And Michelle says really dramatic, Stacey. So yeah, very moody, dramatic one, that one. Cool. Right, how are we doing here? Getting on? Yeah, we're working our way for. Oh, right. Benedito says the blinds make a great film noir image. I did one with a friend. Yeah, I've played around with blinds as well. In fact, I have blinds at my window deliberately. When we moved it, or rather when I took over this particular room for my study, I was also using it as a studio sometimes. It's now too crowded and full up with junk to be able to do that. But instead of putting curtains in, I deliberately put those Venetian blinds in at the window so that I could sometimes get that stripy effect, because it's a lot of fun. Okay, so next up we're going to go to Sophie, who nothing new, person joining in and first time submitting images. So Sophie said, I'm new to sending my photos, for your opinion, too shy, but here are two of my trials for a selfie. So the first one was taken years ago, and then she's done a slightly different editing, and then there's a second one. So this one that she took years ago, here we go. So, you know, and that's fun. That here, what you're doing here, so you can see her head and you can see three reflections. So it's a sort of 4 selfies for the price of 1. 4 images. And I think that gets clever when you start playing around with mirrors, and that allowing you to sort of get glimpses into other worlds as well. And she did a slight variation on the editing as well, creating a kind of a soft pinkish vignette around it. And then she went around, and then but this one was done several years ago, but then she's taken a more recent one, going for a more mysterious kind of thing. So here's Sophie wearing a mask. You've got this big open fan at the background, and she's got a fan in front of her. So I asked, so I thought, well, that's, you know, really colourful, interesting, the mask, creating a little bit of mystery. Lots of, what I like with this is all the echoes. We've got all these semicircles. You know, we've got the big semicircle of the fan in the background, and then the internal semicircle of the, can't think of the word, the little wooden bits that hold it together. And of course the underneath as well. But then she's also holding the fan, so we've got that as well. And then that makes it also then becomes echoed into curves in the hat as well, and even some of the curves within the mask as well. So as I like that notion of these sort of echoes of shapes that are running through Sophie. So I asked Sophie a little bit more about this photo, and she said it's all about missing travel and meeting new people. So as a background, it's a souvenir from Vietnam. I'm behind a mask and with a fan from China, as I didn't fancy being in front of the camera. And so what we've got with Sophie here is an interesting thing, and it's a theme that's sort of cropped up a few times throughout, which I find really interesting, which is for those, you know, as we talked about at the beginning, most people kind of tend to feel a bit self-conscious about being in front of the camera to begin with. And so, some people have kind of just gritted their teeth and overcome it. Some people have done it by playing a character, and so feeling that the attention is drawn away from them as a person and into the character. And some have gone for creatively hiding in the photo. And there's a few of you who've done this, and I think, and that's just as valid. It's absolutely just as valid, and I think it's fun because it's another level of creativity. You don't want to be in the photo, but you're still going to be in the photo. So I'm going to stick a mask and a hat on, and so, or even Stacey when she's at the window. You can see Stacey there, but she is darkened down, so you can't really see her too well, kind of lost in the shadows. So, thanks for sending those ones in, Sophie. Lots of fun. And okay, so where are we? Oh right, Asim's saying to Stacey, can't wait for the horror movie to come out. Now, Inga says, great to see both profiles at the same time. April says, wow, a whole different person. Jackie says, wonderful to see you here, Sophie. Seam says, love that mask, Sophie. Michelle loves the 3 mirror effect. Becca's saying, makes the eyes pop, love it. Sandra says, lovely photo, lovely pictures, Sophie. VG says, clever shot, Sophie. I love the mask and the fans fetching. Sayonara, Sophie. Jackie says, I also prefer being behind rather than in front of the camera. Yeah, absolutely, and it is a recurring theme, and was one of the strong points I was trying to get across last week, which is then how do you do that if you don't really like being in front of the camera? What's the best way to do it? And I think playing a character is a fun way of doing it, but you can also stick on a mask as well. There's lots of fun ways, and we've still got plenty to go through. So we're coming up to about halfway through now. So just to remind you, if you're finding this interesting, entertaining, inspiring, fun, educational, or whatever, and you would like to support these podcasts, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is the place to do it. And now the other thing I will say, we'll just kind of brief moment before we move on. A little heads up, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this at the end of the podcast, so don't go rushing off too quickly. But next week is the 1-year anniversary of these podcasts. A whole year of doing these. So that's episode 53. And those who are thinking, but there's only 52 weeks in a year, is because we started week 1 on the actual first day. So if you work it out, week 53 is in fact the anniversary. So for that, I'm going to ask you to send in some more photos, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. So hang around for the end, and I'll talk about what I want you to send in for next week. So that on one side, let's more things coming in. Stacey saying she's loving the self-portrait so far, and she was going to try for a horror theme like The Ring. And Mandy saying, wow, congratulations, Kim and Becca, whoop whoop. Thank you. All right, well, I think next week will just be one major smug moment, particularly for me, having lasted a year rather, and for anybody else who's been sticking out. I don't suppose there's many of you that were actually around for episode 1. I know 1 or 2 of you have actually gone back and watched some of the previous ones because you joined once it had already been running for a few months. But we'll have a bit of a blether about that next week. But I'm going to talk about the pictures I would like you to send in at the end of the podcast. So let's return to some fun pictures. Naria says, wow, where did the time go? And Asim says, that's amazing, must be very proud. Surprised, I think is more the word, Asim, rather than proud. And VG says, congratulations, it's not an easy feat to achieve, calls for celebrations. Well, maybe we'll also everybody will just have to you're all going to have to bake a celebratory cake, and we'll all sit and eat our cakes together next week. I think that's maybe that's maybe one idea we can try for. Right, okay, so next we're going to go on to Alison. Oh yeah, now Alison. Alison's is a good example, another good example of how to do a creative self-portrait and not appear in, or not be quite so obviously appearing in the picture. So what we have here is Alison said, here's the self-portrait I took in lockdown. I know no one likes photos of themselves, and I'm no exception. But it took me ages to get my hands in just the right position. I'm hoping this image does tell a story. And I thought, what a great idea. So yeah, it's going for that notion of storytelling photo. And on her right hand, left as we look at the picture, she's put all the things she's got love up the top here, and all the things that she loves. So Paul, husband, chocolates, travel, tennis, wine, books, camera, nature, music, friends, Bob the dog. Fantastic. And on her left hand, or right as we look at it, we've got hate. When she hates clowns, COVID-19, numpties. Anybody who's not British and doesn't know what a numpty is, go and Google it. You can have fun with it. Cricket, punk, computers, haggis, clegs, trifle, and waste. God, no, I don't love trifle. Gosh. Clegs, for those who aren't familiar as well, are like the little biting flies, and oh, do they have a bite on them. They're really nasty. Yeah, I'm not surprised. There's a few of those on there that I could probably agree with you. Yeah, computers. Actually, computers are wonderful things when they work. When they don't. Yeah, oh yeah, that's when the hate boils up. But yeah, lovely idea there, Alison. And you know, so you've put a whole load of story. You revealed a huge. It really is a self-portrait. It's a portrait of who you are, and getting a sense of who you are beyond just what you visually look like into your psychology, your feelings, how you approach the world, while at the same time managing to hide most of your face other than your eyes. But you've got very smiley eyes in there, so that's wonderful. So yeah, smug points for you there, I think, both through the creativity of the picture and also your crafty way of making sure that you don't appear in it while appearing in it. Nicely done. Okay, what else have we got here? So Sandra says, great picture, Alison, love it. VG says, brilliant, Alison. Stacey loves the concept. Russ loves this, Alison. Says, love this, Alison. What a great idea, very creative. Nicola likes the concept. Mandy says, brilliant, Alison. Rosie says, Alison, very clever. Lovely to see you. Becca says, very clever. Michelle says, great idea, Alison. April says, very creative. A good therapy picture. An invitation to talk. Stacey says, I like the nail polish colours to boot. I went with dark green in for March. Yep, and VG likewise says, love the nail polish. Rosie also hates computers. Mine is broken, so she can't edit anything at the moment. Yeah, that's seriously frustrating. Alison's very ingenious, says John. Kaylee says, hey Kim. Hey Kaylee, glad you could make it. And Roy says, how can you hate cricket? Yeah, if you love a sport, you just have no idea why anybody else wouldn't like it. I have to say, I'm not overly keen on cricket either. Not that I'm trying to put anybody off. If you love cricket, you love cricket. I just happen to be one of those hellishly uncoordinated children. So any sport we had to do at school, whether it was football or soccer for you on the other side of the Atlantic, soccer, rugby and cricket were the things we had to do during sports period at school. And I was hopeless at them, absolutely awful at them. So cricket for me meant that I would, if I was on the batting team, I would be the last one, which means that mostly the game was over long before I ever got near a cricket bat. And if I was fielding, then I would be shoved right out in the far boundaries where the ball never went. So it was basically however long the period lasted, standing around being bored stupid. But that's the problem with being an uncoordinated child. I don't know. Did you have to play cricket, or is cricket a love of Paul's and you just kind of get fed up watching it there, Alison? Okay, cool. So what else have we got here? Ben said, "Who could hate a game that goes on for 5 days and may have no result?" And several people have put a laughy face next to that one. Stacey loved volleyball and baseball. Yeah. PG says, "Cricket runs in the blood. I cannot hate it." Well, of course, India. I mean, that's, world champions of cricket. It is run, as you say, runs through the blood. Okay. Oh, and April says, "Do you like the sound of crickets in the night?" Well, we just don't get them in the middle of the town, I must admit. So I've never had a problem with them keeping me awake at any rate. Cool. Okay, let's move on. Sandra. So Sandra says, "I wasn't feeling very inspired this weekend, so I raided the back catalogue for this selfie reflection." So we have this. So this was what Sandra was referring to earlier when she made a comment about Robert's reflection in the car mirror. The fact that, so in a way, again, there's the kind of the selfie element of taking a photo of yourself in the mirror and you can see the camera, which should mean deducted points. But I have to say, I love the reflections. So you can allow yourself a smug point for that, I think. I think the little bit like Sophie's earlier, the creative use of mirrors is, who knows, maybe I'll set that as a challenge one week or something. Creative use of mirrors or creative use of reflections. Not necessarily, yeah. Okay, not next week, but maybe a couple of months down the line, I might actually start something on reflections and mirrors and stuff, because so much fun you can have with them. So, little seed planted, you can start thinking about something maybe during the summer or something. We'll throw in one of those as a contest. But yeah, to come back to Sandra here, I like the fact that you've got 3 reflections of you. Sort of all, and it's sort of starting to curve round and whatever. So yeah, quite a fun, interesting photo that. Oh, next up, Becca. Yeah. So Becca went for a half and half selfie. Now, I think it's slightly less noticeable in this one where she went for the colour, but if you go to the black and white one, it's a little bit more obvious. There's a colour version as well, although that's unedited. Let's go back to the black and white, because what Becca did here was here's my half and half selfie, my tidy professional full-time managerial career side and my insane unkempt mum side. So what we can see here is she has literally split herself down the middle. In fact, what's the best way of doing this? So, you know what, I might just actually have to open this with Photoshop to show it a little bit more clearly. Wasn't planning on doing that. I've also got to hope Photoshop doesn't suddenly freeze me on the screen, because sometimes that kind of happens too. Here we go. So what I'll do here is let's just fill in a little shape here. So what I'm wanting to show you here is if I just move this halfway across the face, then what Becca's done is, this is her side. She's got her lipstick on, she's got her makeup on, she's combed her hair, her collar is turned down. This is her professional full-time managerial side. And then on the other side, she's got her unkempt, insane mum side. So collar's up, hair's gone a bit wild, she doesn't have the lipstick on, the mascara's starting to sort of run a bit and sort of be pushed around the face a bit. And I thought that was fun. I thought that was really inventive to actually kind of do that sort of split. I think what I would ideally have liked to have seen, I think it would have worked slightly better in colour. And then I asked you if you could do the colour version. So actually, I wasn't really planning on doing this, but you did send. Okay, where? Oh, Okay, that's deciding not to, so I'll just open this one, and I'll just lighten this up a little bit. So if we go take that into camera raw, filter, and I'll exaggerate some of these. So if we do auto, that's brighten you up. That's kind of gone a little bit overkill with the color. Pull that down a little bit. Pull that down a little bit. Okay, that's auto color. Yep, that's slightly better. Take the vibrance down a touch. And play with the texture or the clarity a little bit more. And now you can see more clearly the difference that Becca's got with the tidy half of the face and the less tidy half. So yeah, well done, Becca. I think it was a lot of fun to do that. And again, it's the planning side of it, that you're not just you know, so you've got to take the photo, you've still got to run round, you've still got to work out where the camera's going to be, but the fact that you sort of decide, you know, lined up the face, which bits you're going to do, yeah, very thoughtful, very imaginative. And now, like I said, I think you notice that's most strongly when you're when you're seeing it face on. The side photo like this, now we know what I'm looking for. I can see that you've got, you know, just the lipstick on one half of the thing, but I don't think it was quite so noticeable, you know, what you were doing with your hair and stuff, until you sort of see it straight on. But lots of fun, and yeah, like, give yourself a smug point for that, Becca. Right, okay, so where have we got? A couple of comments coming in here. So, that was talk about crickets, oh, okay. So Robert says, I like how it spirals out. So we're talking about Sandra's reflections here. VG loves the angles. April says it's cool. You can see the boat outside. Sandra saying thanks for your kind comments. VG's agreeing that will pose a good challenge, to do a challenge on reflections. I'll definitely kind of keep that one in mind, or somebody can remind me in a couple of months' time if I seem to have forgotten. April says, I like the half lipstick. So we're on to Becca's pictures. Jackie says, creative use of mirrors sounds like a difficult but creative challenge. Asim says, that's a very clever, Becca. Vici says, half Cupid bow of lipstick, the bright red. Not many can carry it the way you do. Stacey says, I like the half made up look. Sandra says, good idea, Becca. Roy prefers the black and white image. Vici says, I actually prefer the colour one, the nail varnish on the other side. The unkempt side, or did I imagine? Inga says, cool idea, greatly captured. Becca says, thanks. Rosie says, brilliant idea, Becca. Mandy loves the black and white version. VG says, I did not imagine after all, great idea, and capture, Becca. Right, and Becca, right, okay, Becca and VG are chatting to each other. So, cool, okay, that was fun. So thank you, Becca. Next up then, we are going to go for Russ. Oh, now Russ was getting quite creative here. So Russ says, hi everyone, a bit hurried and last minute, but here's my attempt at a self-portrait for this week's challenge. I'm not actually sure what character I was going for, but kind of magician, basically, I think we have here. So let's flick over and show you Russ's photo. So here we've got, you know, half lit, cards flying. Interesting looking cards up in the band of your hat as well there. Some 4 aces, some kind of Harley Quinn up there. So that definitely looks like part of a costume outfit that you've got or created. Serious look on the face. So somebody you wouldn't necessarily want to meet on a dark alley. Russ says, the shot was taken using a single off-camera speed light to the right, fitted with a honeycomb grid to control the spread of the light. And so what that's done is it's stopped the light sort of lighting up everything. It's sort of helped narrow it into just lighting up the bit that he wanted lit up. And gold reflector to the left. Fairly happy with the result. I'm sure there's plenty of room for improvement. Looking to forward to hearing your thoughts, both good and bad, so feel free to comment. Well, like I say, I mean, tonight's not really for kind of going into big critique. I think it's fun. I think trying to capture a point whereby you've presumably gone click as you flick the cards does look pretty natural rather than necessarily that are all photoshopped in afterwards. I don't know whether you did a few of those and then kind of cut and put several cards together, or whether that is a kind of one shot. Could be more than one, because it looks like you've got the 10 of hearts up there and you've got the 10 of hearts down in the corner as well. But that doesn't matter, that's fun. It's all kind of adding to it. Now, in the version that I've got here, it might be because of the way that Facebook has rendered the image. There's a lot of kind of disappearing into the blacks. You say you've got a gold reflector off to one side, but I can't really see it. Your face has kind of got a little bit lost. Well, anything that's in shadow is in deep shadow. I think it might be quite interesting if we could get a little bit more texture out of some of those shadows. But at this point, to be honest, Russ, I'm nitpicking. It's a fun photo, and I think you should, allow yourself a smug moment for that one. It's not easy to try and make movement, trigger things, and get the flash going at the same time. It's a complicated thing to do. So yeah, well done on that one. That's cool. Okay. So, Asim says, love the colours and the flying cards, Russ. Sandra, yes, another great idea. Well done, Russ. Mandy says, well done, Russ. Rosie says, the effect of the cards flying is terrific. VG says, Russ, as always, brilliant and dramatic. Becca says, this looks fun and very difficult. Maggie likes the change of the focus on the cards. Yep, the fact that you managed to get the sharpness on your face and the cards closest to you, but as they kind of move forward, they kind of move out of focus. And Inga says, me too, creates a good sense of depth. Cool. So that was a good one. Next up then, we have Asim. So Asim says, completely forgot about the challenge, so probably too late. Story of my life. Yeah, you did get them in late. So yeah, you've done this before to me, Asim, but you're okay. I decided to include. So he says, as you're aware, I'm not partial to having my picture taken, as I'm quite vain and self-conscious, and often like being dressed up in my hats. It's true, actually. I think most photos I ever see of you, you do have a hat, and quite often at a bit of a jaunty angle too. So I decided to give this one a go. So the first two images are ones I've previously taken on using my mobile phone. So what we've got is this one, a bit more of a kind of sort of slightly standard selfie-ish. Well, not completely standard, I suppose you're not looking into camera. But this one is a little bit more fun, where you've put the turban on, lovely colour, rich, vibrant red with it. And the second one is, so the first two are ones I've taken on the last one is one I challenged myself to take using my DSLR, which I think is this one. It's called Little Red Riding Hood, Dark Humour. Was shot late last night with a tired looking face in a dark room with just a small lamp, a white translucent lampshade used underneath to provide an uplifting bluish light. The camera was on my bureau as I don't have a tripod yet. Nighttime photography has always presented me with all sorts of challenges, so it was fun and games trying to manage the logistics, camera position in relation to the light, the darkness, and in reference to the subject. Had fun with the facial expressions and head positioning, and then he's given me his camera settings. Some things worked, many didn't, so it was a lot of trial and error. Anyway, here it is. It was a lot of fun playing with the shadows on the white background, so many thanks for the challenge. Then went on to say, can't wait to find out how I could make it less grainy. Now, you can't, depending on the size of your screen, you might not notice, but if we zoom in here, you can see that it is a very grainy picture. And in essence, you're up against this because the settings you sent me, you've got your aperture wide, f3.5, you've got a focal length of 18mm, so fairly wide angle. The ISO is 3200, no flash. So it's the ISO 3200 which is making it grainy. The higher your ISO level, the more noisy or grainy your picture becomes. And basically, to try and avoid that without manipulating it in software afterwards, but it's sort of in camera to get a sort of better quality photo so that it's not full of noise, it's all about light. Now, I don't have time to go in depth on this. I will talk about it in the future. I've talked about it in the past. I will very often talk about it again. But briefly, it's the more light you have, the more you can kind of do with your photo. So if you had a much brighter light, if you had got a flash going off, then you would have a lot more light. So with more light, you wouldn't need the ISO. The high ISO is when you're trying to cope with low light conditions. Now, the other alternative, if you want to get more light in when there isn't a lot of light about, and you've already opened your aperture as wide as you can, is to slow down your shutter speed. And if you're shooting that at, you haven't actually told me what your shutter speed is in that. You've told me what your f-stop, your aperture and your focal length was, but I don't know how long your shutter speed was, because that's what's going to make all the difference. So if you've got that setting and say you've got it at 1/5 of a second, randomly guessing here, that's only letting in a certain amount of light. If you then had that at 1/2 a second or 3 seconds or 10 seconds, a lot more light would get into the camera. And because of that, you could lower down the ISO. You could have an ISO of 200 or 400 or something like that, which wouldn't be anything like as noisy or grainy. However, the problem you would then have with the slow shutter speed is any slight movement and you're going to be out of focus. So essentially, Asim, your problem is the dilemma everybody has with a camera in low light. You are playing around. The three things that you have to play with to balance the amount of light coming in is your aperture, your shutter speed, and your ISO. And if your aperture is as wide as it can be and your shutter speed is as slow as it can be to avoid getting blurred, then the ISO is the only other thing, and it gets higher, but the cost of that is a grainier picture. So if you don't want the grain, you either have to have more light through, maybe a brighter light than just a lamp indoors. You use daylight, you use flashes, whatever, or you have to slow down the shutter speed in order to let more light in. So these kind of things will get talked about more in depth as time goes on, but I hope that kind of gives you just a little bit of insight on that one. Okay, so what have we got here? Russ says, well spotted, Kim. The 7 and 10 and the 2 6s are photoshopped from other images. I want at least 10 smug points for the amount of times I had to pick the cards up. VG says, yes, the layers are nicely set. Adrian, oh, hi, Adrian, glad you could make it along. Says, I like the facial expression against the flying cards. Okay, so, and Russ says, thanks for all your kind comments. Okay, so on to Asim's. Asim saying, sorry, Kim, and I presume that's for getting in late. Inga says, ooh, creepy. VG says, turban becomes you, Saheb. Maggie says, very dark and atmospheric. Sandra says, love the background lighting, Asim. And Becca says, I really like your lighting, Asim. So, yeah, the picture is an interesting picture, fun picture. I think the fact that you went for it, I won't give you any smug points for the original photos, but I think the fact that you put something together last night is certainly worth a smug point. Hopefully what I said about the lighting will give you some insights to play around with next time. Okay, but don't forget, actually, I will say, whilst next week is probably going to be a submission photo thing as well, from the week after we go back to the normal critique section, whereby if you have images that you would like feedback and proper, more in-depth critique in, then stick them into the group Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres on Facebook. If you're not already a member, type Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres into Facebook. The group will come up, join, and let you in. Once you're in, you put in your photo. Let me know what your sticking point is. Let me know where you're having the difficulty, and then the following podcast, I can look at it and we can talk about it, and hopefully I can give you some reasonable feedback and answers. So that's the critique section, so next thing, let's move on. So Ben, all right, now Ben was also mucking around with low light photography, and where are we? So let me flick back over here and move on to here. Really love this one, Ben. He says, here's my self-portrait. It's Isaac Newton without his wig, in the late Middle Age, trying to recall his work on light from 30 years previously. So what we've got here, by candlelight, got a prism down here, and he's got that little kind of Pink Floyd bit with the light hitting the prism and spreading out. And the candle just sitting in a bottle here as well. You can just about make out the edges of. So Ben goes on, I could write an essay here, but I'll try and be brief. Kim was directing us to Caravaggio, inspiring the general style. So yeah, I'm playing with shadow really as much as anything. I decided to try a dim image with a candlelit figure, hence the historical theme. I couldn't dress up, so the candlelight was handy here. So the fact that Ben didn't get a costume means that he's deliberately lost his body into the shadow. As a way of getting around that. I was amazed to discover that I could actually shoot it using the candlelight only. So, and Asim, if you take note here, Ben's settings were f4 in aperture, so quite a wide aperture, ISO 800, so not the 3200 that you had, Asim, and a quarter of a second. And it's that quarter of a second which is really the bit that is slow enough to allow enough light to come in so that you can now actually make it. Now, you've not got bright filled room, but Ben's deliberately been playing with the shadow here to get the light. So, however, whilst that setting allowed the face to be lit up, it did make it hard to dim down the candle, which I would like to do. If I try, colour bands start appearing. Overall, I'm fairly pleased with it. The composition is okay on the right, but the candle has no particular place to be on the left. I'm not so sure about the colour balance. Tried reshooting, but the result was worse. So instead of trying to improve it, I'm going to note things I've learned. That I need to give myself more space in the room to work in. I need to take the trouble to make a proper big dark background. I need to be very conscious of the composition as I shoot, and to shoot in RAW to allow easier adjustment and give me a better chance of adjusting the candle. So yeah, so what I really love here, as well as the fact that it's an interesting photo, you're playing with shadow, you're playing with light, is the fact that you're also learning. You know, this is a really, really important part of these challenges, and taking part in these challenges it's difficult. Things go wrong, things keep going wrong, and you keep having to problem solve, you keep having to overcome. You take something and you look at it on the screen and you go, oh no, it's still not what I want. What do I need to do? And I think that's the power of these challenges, and that's the power of taking part in these challenges. The result is a byproduct. I think the real bit of this is actually in the doing and the overcoming the problems in the process. So I love the fact of that, Ben. So yeah, smug points all round here. Now, what I would say is, in terms of part of the problem that you have with that, yes, in order to get it slow enough to light up your face, it's meant that the candle itself, the actual light source, has kind of then really flared out. Couple of options here. The cheat version, which I do all the time, and on some of the previous photos I've talked about how I've done this. But basically, what I've done on several occasions is I've used an off-camera flash, another light source, usually with an orange gel on it. So just off to the left of the picture, I would have used the flash to actually light myself up with, get the light level that I wanted. It means that the candle will be lit up. I could use a faster shutter speed, because actually you aren't being then lit by the candle, you're being lit by the flash. So you can use a faster shutter speed, the candle doesn't become so dominant, The bottle would then be lit up a little bit more, which I think would be quite interesting. You can, at the moment, it's so dark, it does kind of look like the candle's hanging in midair. If you get in close, and it depends on your screen here, I can just about make out an edge of the bottle, but I would like to see more of that, I think. So, using a separate light source and essentially having the candle in shot so it's faking the candle. The candle, everybody assumes it's candlelight even though it isn't. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to essentially sort of screen the candle a little bit. If you had maybe a piece of smoked glass of some kind that essentially you place in between it and the camera, so the candle is behind the smoked glass, that would make the candle appear dimmer. But it would still be lighting you up. Now, you would then have to play so you don't see the edge of the glass, and there's complications within that. But yeah, you're either kind of at that stage, or the candle isn't in it, or you fake it with another light source. Those tend to be the ways that most people go about it. So hope that gives you some interesting insights onto that. Another little interesting thing I thought was Ben put, P.S. in this picture, I'm the complete image of my dad. That made me laugh. It is, I mean, how many of us have sort of, I'd be interested in how many of you have actually found that in the photos you suddenly realise just how much you look like one of your parents, or a mix. I think it sometimes is quite strange because of that whole, we've talked before about the fact that your face, you're used to seeing your face in reverse, because most of the time we see our face in the mirror when we're brushing our hair, cleaning our teeth, putting on makeup, combing your beard, whatever else. We're more used to seeing our reflection than we are of seeing ourselves the other way around as other people see us, which is another reason for why photos of ourselves always look very strange to us. They never look strange to anybody else, they always look weird to us because our face is the wrong way round. But it also means that supposing you have a nose that goes slightly to the left, just like your dad has a nose that goes slightly to the left, you don't notice it because you're used to seeing your reflection where your nose goes slightly to the right, as you see it. And so suddenly, when your image is reversed, you suddenly realise you look a lot more like your dad than you thought you did. I found this, I see pictures of my brother. I never, where I look much more like my brother in my photos than I think I do. And that's because we've got almost identical eyes. So my left eye sits slightly lower than my right. In terms of the curvier eyebrow, the pointier eyebrow, his are identical. So, this little part here, if you put photos of us, you probably think we're closer to twin. Well, maybe not. We're aging now at slightly different rates, but we've got that same kind of layout of eyes, and I think the same nose as well, which reversed, you don't notice so much if one of them is reversed, but when they're both the same way, suddenly, so I'm aware of that. There are times when I look at myself and I realise there's bits of my dad that I see. There's also, oddly enough, I see bits of my mum's father, my grandfather on the other side. But photos do that sometimes. You see yourself more like a parent or a relative in a way that you never quite noticed when you're just used to seeing your mirror self. So I thought that was an interesting insight. So have another smug moment for smug point for that observation as well, I think, Ben. Okay, let's check the comments, see what we've got here. Lots of comments here. So VG's, what have we got? April says this is brilliant. VG says Sir Isaac Newton, love the background, prism and every detail. Russ says, I commented on this one in the group earlier. Fabulous image, great mood and lighting. Michelle, love the atmosphere and photo in this photo. Well done, Ben. And Nicola says, love your thinking, Ben. Nuria says, well done, Ben. That's brilliant. Maggie says, really like this image, Ben. Asim says, thanks for the feedback, Kim. Exposure 1/35 of a second, but the ISO was kept low as I wanted to keep the light low. Well, yeah, so 1/35. I think if you set your camera for timer, you could have gone down to half a second, and then you could have actually lowered your ISO and made it less grainy. Becca says, lovely selfie, love the texture and highlighting the important bits. Sandra says, great idea, Ben, and another lovely photo. Asim says, amazing pic, Ben. Mandy loves this. Ben saying thank you to everyone. Inga says, I like the play with light and shadows, and especially the fact that you can only see your face and hands. John says, Ben's pick is a good one and artistic. Ben's says, thanks, Kim. Oh, that's good. Glad that was useful. Robert says, a third option could be to photograph the candle separately and layer it in. Yeah, well, that's absolutely true as well. Yes, you could certainly do that. Good idea. Ben says, I wondered about doing that, but ran out of devotion to the task. Okay, yeah, fair enough. There comes a point where you just go, how much more of this have I got to do? It'll do. What's that saying? I think it's attributed to Leonardo da Vinci, which is great art, or just art in general, I think, is never completed, it's only ever abandoned. And I think it's that point whereby there's always something else you could do. There's always something, but there comes a point where you have to go, I have to stop at some point. I'll stop here. That will do. So yeah. Inga says, what about brightening the shadows on the left part so we can, of the photo in post-processing? And Ben says, maybe I'll give that a try. Cool. Okay, so where are we at? So Inga, on to Inga now. So Inga says, I had a lot of fun with this challenge and spent most of Saturday preparing, hanging up backgrounds, moving furniture, and lots of shooting. And Inga sent in several photos. It all started with trying to find some old veils, and I wanted to create a dark, melancholic mood, a bit weird, with veils and flowers, with some of them dropping and decaying. So let me find Inga's photo, and here we go. Here's the first one Inga sent in, and I must admit I love the broken flower with that one as well. That's just sort of dropping down. So Inga's created a backdrop. She's got a dark outfit, she's got a veil, she's got flowers, and one of them's broken, so it's really kind of going for it. So got associations to the old scene, maybe something South European, maybe a situation with grief involved. Started with capturing the whole pose using my iPhone as a remote for my Fujifilm. Right, okay, so this is kind of a little bit what I was talking about earlier. In this case then, Inga's able to use her phone as a remote for her Fuji. So they're able to talk to each other. I think depending on what apps you've got on, some go through your local Wi-Fi or some can Bluetooth. Then I realised I had to get closer to have the effect of the veil, and ended up getting some close-up using the interval setting on my camera. Now that's an interesting one. The interval situation is, so what you can do with some cameras is you can set them so that they go off, and you set that interval every 3 seconds, every 10 seconds, every 20 seconds. You can, some of them have, you can set how often they go. Now you can use that for doing time lapse. So, you can say you've got workers in a field across from the house from you, and you set your thing and it goes click every 10 seconds, and then you can string it together and make a little time lapse movie. But what you can also do is you can essentially, rather than running back round every time you take the photo, you set the photo to the camera to go off every 10 seconds. Well, first of all, you make sure that you've got everything set up with the first photo. So, the lighting is how you want it, the focus is how you want it, the aperture, shutter speed, ISO, all these things are as you want. And then if you're happy with that setting, but you want to try different poses, you set the thing to go interval timer, and it goes off however many. And so you look into the camera, it goes click, you move, it goes click, you move, it goes click. And that way you don't have to keep running around to press click every time. So that's a really good point. Get an extra smug point for that one, Inga. It's a technique I knew about. I've never actually tried myself, but I had forgotten about it. So I'm really glad you reminded me of that one. I think it's a really useful one. So let's take a look at some of the other photos that Inga had with this. So this was the kind of setting up the scene, then coming in closer, then coming in closer again, moving off to one side. I really like this one where the face is in focus, and we've got you can see the detail of the lace in the veil. This one lovely as well, really sharp, clear detail, and that sort of the melancholic looking down. This quite it processed in a slightly different way, playing around with shadow a lot more in this one as well. So great set of photos, and And what I really love the fact that you it's clear from what you're writing there, Inga, that you were just absolutely getting into it, having fun. So, as you say, but so yeah, in fact, you go on to say, so much fun experimenting with light, the camera settings, highlight, long exposure, and it's so interesting how it all changed when my facial expression changed. So I hope you bear with me when I post a few pics, partly to show some of the steps and partly because it was so hard to pick and choose. Yeah, I what I love here is that you've had fun. It's like so many people. It's that bit where how far can I take this? Let's get a veil, let's create a background, let's move furniture about, let's change things. Especially there's a saying, I'm sure I said it before, and I will no doubt say it again, which is photography is 1% inspiration, 99% moving furniture. And any of you who've had to adjust the furniture about, I'm sure will greatly identify with that saying. So, yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Inga. Smug points for you. Okay, let's see what else comments we have. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, right. Okay. So April says, reminds me of an Addams Family character. And Michelle says, oh, that's just what I was going to say, April. Right. So Inga says, use the lamp to set the focus. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So yes, because then you've got a bright spot, then that's exactly where the camera is going to focus on. Once you've got the focus, you flip it over to manual focus so that it doesn't keep changing, having to adjust all the time. That's a good idea. VG says, yes, Morticia from the Addams Family. Roy says, the drooping flower makes the picture. Sandra says, lovely series of pics, Inga. Becca says, it's beautiful. Russ says, great idea, Inga. Reminds me of Miss Havisham from Great Expectations. That's true. Or was Miss Havisham wearing a wedding dress? A funny feeling she was wearing a wedding dress. I don't know. Somebody with better literary knowledge might need to correct me on that one. Rosie says, I've done time lapse of a sunset, but never thought to use it for something like this. Brilliant idea. Thanks, Inga. April says, hard light shot. Nicola says, like the expressions, the emotions expressed. Inga's thanking everybody, and VG, lovely postures and lace patterns. Right, okay, cool. So where are we at now? We're sort of working our way through. 2 or 3 more photos left, I think. And then I will talk about what I want you to do for next week. But so far, oh, Maggie's come in and said, yes, it was a wedding dress. Okay, thanks for that correction, Maggie. Oh, and yeah, Rosie's come in. Yes, a wedding dress. I think she may have been left at the altar and never got over it. That rings a bell. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Okay, a little bit of a tangent shooting off on there, but yes, it's a lovely idea. It's this creating a character and then creating, and I think the fact that you say, just to say, you can create all that and then you change the expression on your face and bam, the whole image changes. And I suppose there's another little point there which is worth just talking about, which is portraiture. Portraiture is about the face, and it can be more than just the face, but it is primarily about the face and these subtleties of expression. And I think when you really get into portraiture, that's where the fun lies. There's all the fuss with trying to get the technical setup. Is it in focus? Is it lit how I want? And all the rest of it. But once you've got that, then playing with the expression is really... And actually, I think if you're doing the self-portrait, that's where the interval thing can really come in, where you set everything up. You're doing the self-portrait, goes click. You can keep everything else the same. If you like the composition, if you like the lighting, if you like the setup, and then just... change the expression. Each time it clicks, change the expression. Click, change the expression. Click, change the expression. And then look back at them afterwards. And I'm sure you will find that you'll get great insights and you'll find some really interesting stuff going on. Oh, Russ says, yes, Kim, she was wearing a wedding dress, but the veil and decaying flowers reminded me of her. Okay, well, my apologies there then, Russ. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Um, okay, so where were we? Oh, right, Michelle. Ah, yes, yes, Michelle. Michelle was having fun as well, dressing up here. Love Michelle's um, mystery fortune teller, I think, here. So Michelle says, had some fun doing this, but didn't have a lot of time. Would have wanted my face sharper. But it has inspired me to try again with different shots with more time. I applied the vignette to the photo just to add a bit of mystery. So yeah, it's all kind of fading out at the edges. So it looks like. So is this a reflection of what's the other side of? Because I'm just trying to think. Is that a mirror then, as opposed to a lens ball? Because a lens ball would have just sort of shown up the bottom half of your face, your hair, and your neck, I guess. Whereas that could be a reflection of, looks like a table and plants, so a garden shot. So either you're out in the garden with a mirror there and a backdrop, or you've taken a lens ball shot and you've photoshopped it into place as a way, which, either way is great, because what it means is that the picture in the lens is different to what we can see of the surroundings, and as such adds to that lovely story of the idea that we're seeing something different in the lens, the whole fortune telling idea. Love your headpiece, and all the coins and the metal and stuff hanging down, and the earrings going with it. Obviously I had quite a lot of fun with that. Got your bangles as well. Superb. And I also, smug points there for you, Michelle. And I think I also really love the idea that bit that you say, that you kind of, you had the idea, you went for it, you're not totally happy with it, and there's other things you would do if you had more time, and you're going to go back to it. And that's brilliant. That's music to my ears, that idea that, because for a lot of these photos, it's this idea that they're a starting point. You can use them like a kind of thumbnail sketch, to give you the ideas of, okay, I'm going to do something quickly, or I'm going to do something, within the time constraints that I have. But it's now inspired me to come back to it. When I've got more time, I've then got a better idea of what I'm supposed to be doing. And a lot of photographers will do this in the same way. All art, let's say the thumbnail sketch. A lot of artists will do a quick sketch of something first, just to get an idea of the proportions and everything that they want before they go ahead with the painting. You get sculptors who will do maquettes, little versions of the sculpture, to again make sure they understand the proportions and the possible mistake areas and what have you before they start tackling it on the big level. And similarly with photography, you can do the same kind of thing. If you're going to especially if you're going to be doing some kind of really quite ambitious photo, do test photos, do little photos, do quick photos to give you an idea of how the composition might be, how the lighting is going to be, how the objects are going to be, whether you're going to need to set up separate lights and fake the candle. Do these things separately, so that when you come to do the main photo, the more ambitious one, you've already worked out most of the problems, and so you're able to then get on with the thing that you do. Lots of fun there, Michelle. Thanks for sending that one through. Okay, so what have we got here? Comments. Stacey loves the crystal ball fortune teller. Rosie says the crystal ball is intriguing. April says everyone is just being so creative and different. Loved all the ideas and picks. VG says, oh, my favourite, a lens ball. Of course, VG, yes, because over the past few weeks, VG's put in a couple of shots with lens balls, where got one recently. Asim, love the costume and the facial expression. Great play acting. Oh, Michelle says, yes, I photoshopped in another picture of a lens ball to add interest. Cool. Okay, good. Thanks for clearing that one up. And Sandra says, yet another good idea for a photo, Michelle. And VG says, the headpiece with the ornaments looks like something that looking like a character out of Arabian Nights. Cool. Okay, right, so next up then. let's scroll down. Nuria. Okay, so Nuria. Oh, yes. Right, okay. So Nuria says, here's a photo I took for this week's challenge. I know it's not perfect, a lot needs doing, but I thought I'll give it a go, even though self-portrait is not my thing at all. Well, again, it's that idea, just exactly what we've talked about there, Nuria, about the idea. You can use it as a starting point, even if you're not happy with it. You can. It's a starting point to then kind of come back once you sort of work out other ideas. However, let's take a look at this photo because it is fun. And what Nuria's gone for is she's me as Cruella de Vil. So for anybody who's watched the Disney movies, 101 Dalmatians, that's the inspiration here, where she's got the split white and black hair, the spotted Dalmatian top, and a long cigarette holder. So lots of fun. Yeah, I love the fact that you've kind of gone for kind of creating the scene, but also you've kept that black and white theme going. So the cigarette holder is black with the white tip cigarette, the black and white tablecloth, black backdrop, and then what you also did was you did a black and white version of the photo as well. So another kind of take on it as well. So yeah, lots of fun with that. Again, it's the dressing up, it's the having fun. I think in terms of the light here, it looks like you've used the flash. I'm judging by the reflection in your eyes. It looks like you've got a flash going off, which is coming straight at you. I think it would be more fun with this if you had the flash slightly off to one side. Now, a little bit depends on whether you've got, what your setup is. Maybe, if you can take the flash off the camera, if you've got a separate flash rather, an off-camera flash, then side lighting or three-quarter lighting, I think can always be a bit more interesting than light that comes straight on. If the flash is attached to the camera, some flashes have an ability to sort of swivel. In which case, if you can do that, sometimes turning it and bouncing it off a wall or a reflector or something like that, so the light kind of comes from the camera, bounces and comes back at you from the side, is another way of playing with the light. So there are kind of different ways to play around with the light as well. The flash doesn't always have to come straight on. But I love the idea. Lots of fun there. So thanks very much for sending that one in, Nuria. Right. Okay, and what have we got? April loves the black and white. Sandra thinks the black and white is more effective, but it's another great picture. Cool, right. Now, I'm going to have to start getting larger glasses, I think, going through the water at a rate here. Nuria says, my flash is attached to the camera, unfortunately. Yeah, so there's little ways, it's just trying to find ways to play around it. You can even kind of create little soft boxes or bending light. Maybe at some point I need to do a session on how to manipulate flash on the camera. Anyway, not enough time to do that tonight. Okay, Michelle says, great photo and such fun. Inga says, great in black and white. Russ says, great idea. Again, I too prefer the black and white. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the last photo. Don't run away because I still want to talk to you yet about what we're going to do next week. But what I'm going to finish with is Nicola. Oh, what's that? Oh, Maggie, you are a love. You're an absolute saver. Thank you. My wonderful wife has just brought me a topped up glass of water, so thank you, Maggie. Very, very much appreciated. I'll just edit out a long slurp there from the YouTube version. So where am I going now? Nicola, yes. And I bet you were beginning to wonder whether we'd ever actually get to your photo. However, let's flick over. I have to say, I love this. I absolutely love this. I think, it's smug points on so many levels for this one, Nicola. So Nicola says, this is my take on a self-portrait challenge. I'm going to call it a bad dream. I was apprehensive about attempting this challenge, but I'm glad I did it, as it has really encouraged my imagination to run wild. You see, and it's music to my ears. I just love hearing that. Makes me feel that, you know, these podcasts are worthwhile. So, you know, the idea, again, like so many people this evening, it's stepping outside your comfort zone and getting creative. And the idea that you would never have done it otherwise, you know, I think is but now you have, and that's helped you to kind of cross a line into future ideas. So it says, I never created anything like this before, so it was completely uncharted territory. I wanted the prime purpose of this shot to be thought-provoking. I think my son and husband were slightly shocked when I showed them both. Yeah, that's so common, that, you know, you have an idea and you're pursuing it and you've got all these ideas, and then you show it to somebody else and they see you in one way, and then suddenly you reveal these other thought processes that they're not used to, and there's this sort of like, whoa, where did that come from? I've just shown my daughter and she was horrified. The shot features an old door from our house, which had the glass accidentally broken this week. So I thought, why not turn a negative into a positive and feature it somehow? So yeah, it's already that crinkly glass stuff, but then you've got the break in it and these lovely lines. But you can have a break in glass and the lines, but how do you get it to show? Now what you did, she goes on, Nicola says, I shot this at night and I set the camera on a set of step ladders. Step ladder are great if you don't have a tripod. Yeah, step ladder's a great one. And in our garage, and put it on a 10-second timer. It took around 40 shots to get the one I was happy with lots and lots of racing around objects. Our garage is very messy. So I suppose, yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. Just like we were talking earlier with Stacey, sort of, because it was the wrong side of the window, has to rush out the door and then it goes click and then come back in. If you're doing it in a garage and you've got stuff, each time you've got to run around, it's like a little assault course getting from one side to the other. So it says, in the dark, with only a torch for guidance, to beat the timer, right? So you really were setting yourself the challenge with this. I had a single light bulb placed over the door, hanging down to pick out the broken glass. I love that idea. So the light the light bulb hanging down is then catching the edges of all this broken glass and really giving us that texture. Now I popped in the background from another shot that I held to give the effect of looking from the outside. So although she's in the garage, she's later on in post-production stuck in this spooky tree happening in the back. So it now looks like you are indoors looking out through a broken window, and who's this mysterious figure, and it's all, yeah, very creepy. So the post-shot editing was surprisingly minimal. I'm fairly happy with the result, although part of me wants to crop it more heavily, but I've refrained from that as I quite like the natural frame the door has given. And breathe. She's written and breathe. So I think this works on so many levels. I mean, it's a really striking image. It grabs you straight away. Love the way the light is capturing the grey hair that's coming down. The way that the colour of the hair is also being echoed into that almost spider web kind of cracks through the glass that are going through. But then the glass itself isn't even straight glass. It's that sort of wavy folded glass, so that we have that distorted effect happening up with the fingers. The way your arm curves around within the hole of the glass. And again, when I was talking earlier about that notion of creatively making sure you're not actually seen very clearly in the photo, we still don't know what you look like. We know you have grey hair, but that's about it, Nicola. So a bit like Alison with doing a hands thing across the eyes, or suddenly forgot. Sophie, I think, was it, with the mask. A creative way of being in the photo, but not being in the photo, but not revealing your face as well. So there's multiple levels here, from the way you've done the lighting, the way you've done the post-processing, the way you've picked out the glass, the charging backwards and forwards, and all these kind of things. Now, I think everything you've done, each of these things individually, everybody's also been doing on one level or another. I think you've managed to stack them all up together to create a particularly difficult set of circumstances for yourself. But it's really paid off. I just think it's fantastic. So I think, if I have to, if I have to choose a kind of a sort of a prime smug award, I think probably you'll get it for this one, Nicola. Very impressed with this. Now, what I noticed in the comments as well, one or two people I think said they would be interested to see what it would look like without the background, and you did in fact do that. You shoved in there it is without the texture, and it's quite interestingly does give it a slightly different feel. With the texture, without the texture, without the tree in the background. I personally prefer the tree in it because it creates a little bit more texture. I think without the tree, in a way, it kind of makes it look a little bit more realistic, which ought to maybe make it even more scary or whatever. But I suppose that extra bit of texture kind of makes it, to me, it's more storytelling. It's more illustrative in some ways, I suppose. Yeah, so to me it takes me a little bit further into a fantasy realm. Cinematic, theatrical, illustrative, really. So, thank you very much for sending that one in, Nicola. Greatly appreciate. And so, okay, well, I'll just do a quick look at the comments there because I think we've got quite a few. Right. Okay. How far back do I need to go here? Right. Okay. So that was great in black and white. Right. So Mandy says my favourite. April says it's amazing to me that so many more women posted than men. Now there's an interesting little sideline. Funny enough, I was thinking about this, but actually, it's actually it is in keeping with the number of people who take part. There is. I think. In the end, out of the 20 odd people who took part, I think it's 6 men and 14 women. But that is actually kind of reflective of the ratio of the people who take part. I noticed this fairly on. We don't have an even 50-50 split. There are more women watching than men. I don't know whether that's coincidental. I don't know whether it's because men very stereotypically don't like asking for advice or help so much. You can probably sort of start drilling down some interesting psychological behaviour here, or it might just be purely coincidental. But I don't think it's just that more women who watch decided to submit than men decide to watch. I think actually it's the ratio of the fact is that there are more women than men who generally, well, at least interact with. I don't know how many people watch these podcasts who never comment. They just sort of lurk as such, watch but never say anything. But in terms of the people who interact, it's a higher percentage of women. So I think the number of photos reflects that. Jackie saying, what a kind gesture, Maggie, for bringing through the water. Thank you. VG says, ring on her finger. We'd love to have a closer look. Maggie says, so fab, Nicola. Becca says, incredible capture. So Michelle says, yes, absolutely amazing, well done. Jackie says, love the surrealist effect. Ben says, nice connection between the broken glass and your broken image caused by the ribbed glass. Okay, I think there's a general conversation going on about Maggie bringing me through the water being true love, and she's a keeper. She is. We've been together for over 30 years, and I have no plans on letting go. Sandra says, wow, dramatic photo. Russ says, this is a great image, really creates an atmosphere and makes you want to know more. VG said, you saved the best for last, Kim. Robert says, incredible idea, very scary and strong, very afraid for you. Nicholas says, I was petrified of the spiders in the garage, to be honest. Oh, right, so you had to overcome the spider fear as well. Wow. Okay, so you've gone to the nth degree. Stacey says, love it. I like the broken glass vibe. April, trailer for a horror movie. Seems simply stunning. Rosie says broken glass is great, such a great idea. Oh, Naria says spiders would have been perfect if they were on the glass. Ben says the big curved crack outlines your arm and connects your hand to the rest of you. Yes, I suppose it does stop it kind of being a slightly disembodied hand, which potential problem. But you can still see a bit of the shoulder, yes, but you're right, it kind of it adds a nice curve to it there. April says very professional looking. Rosie says Hitchcock-esque. So in this style of Hitchcock, perhaps. Ben says well-deserved Prime Smug Award. Michelle likes the tree. Ben's suggested no texture, but now he thinks that the texture is better. And Nicholas thanking everybody for the lovely comments. Russ says, I prefer it with the tree, but without it looks more institutional, like someone trying to escape an asylum. There's an interesting interpretation. I like that one. Robert says, more women are watching because of your devilishly good looks. Somehow I doubt that. But I appreciate the compliment. Maggie says very pleased to hear it, especially with your devilishly good looks. Right. Okay, so thank you so much to absolutely everyone who has taken the time to submit an image. The fact that you took your time to move out of your comfort zone, to give it a go, to challenge yourself. It's never an easy thing to do. Technically, we've heard about all the technical problems people have overcome to try and take their photos, and the psychological aspects of trying to overcome being on the wrong side of the camera as well. I think that doing self-portraits can be one of the hardest things you can ever ask anybody to do. Especially if you are asking them to go beyond just the kind of a selfie. We all know what the selfie is, but when you try and create a self-portrait, a narrative self-portrait, a story portrait with you in it, I think it's one of the most difficult things to do, but it's also can be one of the most rewarding. And it's also something you can do at home. You don't have to wait until you've got a model. You don't have to wait until somebody else. And when we're in lockdown now for over a year, and you want to create interesting scenes, then you have a ready-made model in yourself if you can overcome that initial fear of being in front of the camera, which all of you who submitted tonight have managed to do. Those of you who didn't manage to submit but wanted to, ran out of time, fair enough. I hope you've been inspired, though, to give it a go. Those of you who've commented, fantastic. This has been brilliant. 294 comments, it says. That's by far and away the most comments we've ever had on one of these. I mean, I thought breaking 200 comments the other month was pretty big. This is nearly 300. Ben saying fabulous variety of interpretations on the challenge, and it really is. We've had everything from mirrors to broken glass to by candlelight to head scarves to light coming in through blinds in the window. There's all sorts of things that everybody's been up to. It's been really imaginative and really creative. So thank you to everyone. So next week then, I did promise that I would talk a little bit about next week. In fact, just before I get that, one final reminder that if you've found these interesting, supportive, creative, inspiring, and would like to support the podcast, buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is the place to go. Not compulsory, but always appreciated. So next week is the anniversary edition. Next week, 1 whole year. I asked you all if you would give me some ideas, and nobody came back with anything. So I had to brainstorm with my wife ideas, and I think what I've decided to do is I want you next week to send me your best photo. Back just before New Year, just as we're coming into the new year, I asked you to send me your favourite photo of 2020. And at that point, I wasn't worried about technical expertise. I wasn't worried about whether it won any fancy awards or anything like that. It was just about your favourite photo. And a lot of people sent in some photos which they knew weren't in focus. They knew weren't composed right or were a bit lopsided or whatever, but there was an emotional attachment to them because it was their grandson or it was their nephew, or they remembered the place that they were in and the experience they were having when they took the photo. And that was really, really interesting, and because I love the stories. This time though, what I really want is I want what you consider to be your best photo. Now the parameters for this are, it might be because it's the one that wins more competitions or scores highly when you put it into contests. Or it might be the kind of photo where you love it because it was more than you hoped for. You set out to create a photo. We all have photos like this. We set out to create a photo, and somehow it went beyond. It turned out to be much better than we could have possibly hoped it was ever going to do. And that experience gave us a little thrill, and we thought, yeah, and that photo then has become something of an inspiration, a reminder, or a sense of maybe I can do this after all. And I love those kind of photos. But so what I want essentially what you're going to call your best photo. And it might, like I say, it might be best as in other people love it, or it might be best as in it's the one you love the most. But what I also want along with it is when you post it in the Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres Facebook group, I want you to tell me why it's your best, what it is you love about this photo. Okay, so next week it's going to essentially be like another challenge, but we're going to inspire each other. Because it's the anniversary edition, I want everybody to just throw in their best photo. And we're going to take a look and we're going to see what everybody considers the photo that they really love the most that they've done, either because that's the one that they've got the most praise for, or because they felt it helped propel them forward in your photography. It's helped propel you. So with that in mind, I'll set up the event page in the next day or two with that. But that's us. What a fun evening that's been. So we've just hit the 2-hour mark and 298 comments. Thank you ever so much to all of you who took part. Hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you feel inspired, and I hope some of you will now go away and start creating interesting storytelling, narrative scenes starring yourself if you can't grab hold of anybody else, and use that option to really create. I talked last week about the idea of it, in a way, almost being like still life but with you in it. And there's that kind of element. It allows you to create the scene rather than just capture what's already there. So thank you once again. I think we've got more comments turning up. Yeah, people saying it's been. Russ says, great night. Incredible selection from creative people, ideas and talented people. Ben saying fabulous variety. VG, oh, what a night. Naria, some great ideas, great night. Stacey says, nice creative challenge. And a few more good nights and thank yous and good nights. So brilliant. Thank you. We've broken the 300 comments, as everybody says good night, and I'll see you all next week. In the meantime, get clicking away with the cameras. So thank you ever so much, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Good night.